You ever have one of those moments where everything around you goes quiet? Not because it is quiet, but because your brain just shuts the volume off. That's exactly what happened the moment Amanda, my wife, my partner, my best friend of nearly 10 years, looked across the boardroom table and said, "Nate, you're being let go." Just like that. No warning. No heads up the night before. No fights. No build-up. Just a sudden, calculated strike in a room full of suits I barely recognized. I didn't say anything. I couldn't. My mouth was dry and my heart was beating so loud I swear I could hear it echoing in the walls. I sat there in the same chair I'd picked out for our new office space 3 years ago and just listened as she rattled off her script like she was reading a press release. Burnout, creative differences, vision alignment. It was like she'd practiced it in the mirror. I mean, maybe she had. Amanda was always the performer. The face. The charm. I was the builder, the quiet guy who stayed up until 3 a.m. fixing back-end bugs and negotiating last-minute vendor contracts. And now I was just gone. She slid a manila folder toward me, severance agreement, non-disclosure, the works. I remember thinking how neat her nails looked, glossy and perfect. Then I glanced up and saw him. Chris Denton. Sitting at the end of the table, arms folded, watching me like I was some outdated model they were finally scrapping. Chris was a venture capitalist, one of the newer investors we brought in 6 months ago. Slick smile. Bright teeth. Eyes that scanned rooms like a hawk looking for its next target. I didn't like him then, and I sure as hell didn't like him now. Amanda stood as I signed the papers. It's not personal. It's just business. That line? It'll be carved into my brain until the day I die. I walked out of Rotex Glass building, the one I helped design, with nothing but a box of stuff and a 1,000-yard stare. I didn't even go back to the house that night. I checked into a cheap motel on the edge of town, ate a gas station sandwich, stared at the ceiling. But I wasn't broken. I was thinking, calculating, because if Amanda thought I just vanished quietly, she didn't know me at all. I woke up the next morning to the hum of a cheap AC unit and the smell of industrial carpet cleaner. Motel sheets clinging to my skin. For a second, I forgot where I was, then it hit me like a wave. I'd been fired. By my wife. In front of strangers. And it didn't end there. The house? Yeah, that wasn't mine either. Amanda had put it in her name when we bought it. Said it would make taxes easier. Simplify things, she told me back then. I didn't push back. I trusted her. That was the theme of our marriage, really. I built, she talked, and somewhere in the middle I forgot to protect myself. So when I went back to grab some of my stuff, I didn't even use my key. It had been deactivated. She was 2 steps ahead. Always. There was a manila envelope taped to the front door with my name on it. Inside? A note from her attorney listing which personal items I could retrieve, a list that somehow didn't include my guitar, my mother's watch, or the signed Vonnegut book I kept in my office. I didn't even knock. I just turned around and drove. I ended up 2 hours outside the city, winding through pine roads until I found this old cabin I remembered from a weekend trip we took years ago. The owner still had my number. He let me rent it out long-term, no questions asked. It was quiet. Secluded. No neighbors. No noise. Just me, my laptop, and a storm of emotions I hadn't even started to unpack. But I wasn't planning to unpack them yet. Because I wasn't done. Not by a long shot. Before I started anything new, I made 3 calls, one to a lawyer, one to a digital forensics expert, and one to a private investigator named Micah. Each of them asked the same question, "You sure you want to do this?" And every time I said the same thing. I built the company with my bare hands. If she thinks she can erase me, she's in for a surprise. What I didn't know then was just how deep the betrayal actually went. But I was about to find out. Micah wasn't your average PI. He didn't wear cheap suits or park outside people's homes with binoculars. The guy had worked cyber crimes for the FBI before starting his own shop. Quiet, analytical, scary smart. When I explained what I needed, he didn't blink. "You're not trying to get her back," he said. "No," I replied. "I want to know who she became when I wasn't looking." That line hit harder than I meant it to. Micah nodded. "Give me access to her digital life, emails, calendars, credit card records if you have any. I'll take it from there." He called me 6 days later, just after 8 a.m. I was sitting on the porch of the cabin, sipping burned coffee, trying to convince myself I was okay. "You might want to sit down," he said. "I'm already sitting." There was a pause on the line, long enough for my gut to start twisting. "She's been cheating on you," he finally said. I didn't say anything. I just stared out at the trees. "With Chris Denton," he added. "Your investor." That got a reaction. I stood up so fast the mug slipped from my hand and shattered on the porch. "You sure?" I asked, even though I already knew the answer. I've got hotel records, photos, GPS data. It's not new either. It's been going on for over a year. A year. While I was pulling double all-nighters to fix server crashes, she was sneaking off to hotel lounges and boutique retreats. Micah wasn't done. She's also been funneling money. Small transfers. Consistent. PR firms, high-end coaches, something called Empower Her Collective, a women's group that preaches, and I quote, reclaiming financial and emotional independence from passive partners. Passive? That word stuck in my head like a splinter. Amanda had rebranded me. In her mind, maybe even in her pitch decks, I wasn't her partner. I was an obstacle. An image she needed to shed. I sat back down and stared at the pine trees, my mind racing in every direction. Amanda didn't just cheat. She rewrote our story, cast herself as the visionary heroine and me as the guy holding her back. But here's the thing about stories. They only work when you control the ending. And I was just getting started writing mine. Rotech was crumbling, but Amanda didn't know it yet. That's the funny thing about startups. When they grow fast, everyone assumes they're invincible. Clients don't ask questions, investors ride the high, and founders start thinking they're gods. But I knew better. Because I was the one who built the bones. Amanda had the smile, the vision board, the hashtags. I had the code. And Rotech? It was built on my code, a custom backend architecture so precise, so deeply integrated that I never documented a single line for anyone else. Not because I was hiding it. Just because I didn't think I'd ever need to. So when she cut me out, she also cut out the only person who could keep the engine running. I heard about the first crash 2 weeks after I left. Tenant portal wouldn't load. Payments weren't syncing. Customer service was flooded. I didn't gloat. I watched. I watched as Amanda tried to plug the holes with overpriced consultants who didn't understand the framework. Watched as her new CTO, some kid who looked like he got his comp sci degree off Etsy, rewrote pieces of the stack and made things worse. And then came the calls. Old clients. Vendors. People who knew the real engine behind Rotech. Nate, are you freelancing? You got bandwidth for a side gig? What actually happened over there? I didn't answer most of them. Not yet. But one call I did take from someone I hadn't heard from in years. Davenport Systems, a mid-tier competitor when we were starting out. They'd always been stable, slow-moving, solid, like a cruise ship. We were the speedboat. Lawrence Davenport, the voice said. I've followed your work since you were at Ridge Tech. We're looking to scale. We want you. Creative control? I asked. Full. Equity? Stock options 2%. I didn't say yes. I didn't say no. I just sat there, staring at the contract he emailed me 15 minutes later. Amanda had tried to erase me from Rotech, but what she didn't realize was that I had already started sketching the blueprint for something better. And this time, no one would ever be able to fire me from it. I didn't tell anyone I'd signed with Davenport. Not at first. I kept showing up to the cabin every morning like clockwork, but instead of patching old code, I started designing something from the ground up. A new architecture. A smarter platform. Cleaner. Faster. More secure. This wasn't just a revenge project. It was an evolution. Every mistake I'd made at Rotech, I corrected it. Every security flaw I'd once patched under pressure, gone. I rebuilt it like a man who knew what it meant to lose everything and refused to make the same mistake twice. Lawrence let me hire my own team. Quietly. Carefully. No recruiters. No job postings. Just emails to the people who used to stay late with me at Ridgetech. Developers who didn't need to be managed, only unleashed. I brought on Leo, a back-end genius who once coded an entire rental processing system in a week. Mina, the best QA lead I'd ever worked with. And Alan, a security consultant who made firewalls feel like Fort Knox. We called it a special project. Internal code name, Slate. On the surface, it looked like an experiment. In reality, it was Rotech 2.0 minus the arrogance, minus the drama, minus Amanda. And it worked. Faster than I expected, too. Within a month, we had a working prototype. 2 months? A demo platform running live tests with real data. Lawrence didn't ask questions. He just said, push it as far as you can go. Meanwhile, Amanda was spiraling. Rotech's biggest clients were getting antsy. Their rent processing was delayed. Emails were bouncing. Dashboards crashing mid-login. Amanda issued a public statement calling it a temporary migration issue. But insiders knew better. Word was spreading. Rotech had lost its architect. And no matter how glossy Amanda's Instagram stories looked, the truth was bleeding through. Then came the moment I'd been waiting for. A call from Northfield Properties, Rotech's largest client. I picked up on the second ring. Hi, this is Devin from Northfield. We're shopping for new management software. Heard you were working on something. I took a breath. Kept my voice calm. I might be. Well, if you are, he said, we'd like to see it. And if it's what we've heard, we're ready to switch. I didn't smile. Not yet. But that was the first time I felt it, the shift. Amanda had made her move first. But I was just now putting my queen into play. It started with a tweet. One of Rotech's mid-sized clients, a property firm out of Denver, posted a screenshot of their admin dashboard stuck on a processing error loop. Caption? How are we supposed to run a multi-unit operation when your platform crashes every Monday? The post blew up. Comments. Retweets. Then came a TikTok from a frustrated leasing agent showing herself refreshing the app 15 times before it finally logged in. That's when Amanda finally broke her silence. She went live on LinkedIn, makeup perfect, office carefully staged, even had the Rotech logo glowing behind her. She blamed legacy code. Said they were transitioning away from outdated systems left behind by a former employee. I watched the whole video from the cabin, sipping black coffee, trying not to laugh. Legacy code. I was the legacy. She even took a subtle jab, said their new direction was youth-driven, future-proof, and no longer reliant on internal bottlenecks. Translation? Nate's gone. And we're winging it now. But here's the problem with pretending the engine didn't matter, the car still had to run. And it wasn't. Support tickets kept flooding in. Clients started pulling contracts. First a trickle, then a stream. I didn't have to lift a finger, Amanda's new CTO was doing all the damage for me. Then I got a text. From Amanda. Hey, can we talk? I stared at the message for a full minute before locking my phone and tossing it across the couch. An hour later, she tried again. I know things got complicated. I just think we owe it to ourselves to have a real conversation. Face to face. She hadn't reached out since the day she let me go. But now that Rotech was bleeding, now I was relevant again. That night she called. I didn't answer. She tried twice more before leaving a voicemail, her voice suddenly soft, fragile, almost rehearsed. Nate, I know I made some mistakes, but this doesn't have to end in hate. Please call me back. We can still fix things. You're still part of the story. That last line stuck with me. Because Amanda never understood the story wasn't hers to write anymore. It was mine now. Amanda always had this way of controlling the room. Every meeting, every panel, every investor pitch, she walked in like the sun was behind her. Confident, smooth, magnetic. But desperation? Desperation made her clumsy. It started small. She emailed me an urgent technical request. Something about accessing old documentation I'd supposedly left behind. There was no documentation. I built the system to be secure and self-contained. Then came the bribe. She offered me $20,000 for a single consulting session. $20,000. The woman who fired me like a contractor now wanted to pay me to fix the mess she swore was mine. I stared at the email, fingers hovering over the keyboard. Then I replied. I charge $500 per hour. 4-hour minimum. And even then, I'd rather mow lawns. She didn't take it well. An hour later, she called. I picked up that time mostly out of curiosity. Are you seriously this petty? She snapped. No, I said. I'm this principled. There was silence on the line. Then she hissed, you think you're punishing me? You're just proving why I had to cut you out. You've always been too emotional. I smiled. That was her go-to, flip the script. Gaslight. Make it about my reaction, not her betrayal. You fired me, I said calmly. You lied. You siphoned money. You cheated. I built a company and you sold it for applause. You built software, she spat. I built the brand. You think people bought into Rotech because of your stupid code? Please. They bought into me. And there it was. The truth. Stripped bare. Amanda never saw me as a partner. I was her backstage crew. The guy behind the curtain making the lights flicker while she took the bow. You're right, I said finally. They bought into you. Then I hung up. And right after that, Rotech's second largest client dropped them. Publicly. The same day, my team finalized our beta platform and Northfield officially signed with us. One by one, her dominoes started falling. But Amanda? She wasn't done yet. Because when people like her start losing the narrative, they don't just give up. They get reckless. 3 nights after I hung up on her, Amanda showed up at my apartment. Not a call. Not a text. Just knock, knock, knock. It was 9:47 p.m. I just wrapped a late call with Leo and Mina, our dev leads. We were debugging a feature for our Northfield client portal when I heard the knock and instinctively checked the security cam. Amanda. She looked off. Still put together, but not right. Her hair wasn't curled like usual, her makeup smudged, a bottle of wine clutched in one hand like it was a shield. She kept glancing over her shoulder like someone might be following her. I didn't answer the door. Just watched through the feed. Then she started knocking louder. Nate, she called out. I know you're in there. Silence. Nate? Come on. Don't be like this. We were our partners. This can't be how it ends. I muted the feed. Sat on the couch. Waited. She stood out there for a full 5 minutes before sliding something under the door, a printed copy of an email. At the bottom, handwritten in red ink. We built this. Don't let it fall because of pride. Then she left. The second I heard her heels fade down the hall, I picked up the paper. The email was a draft from Rotech's board. They were planning an emergency vote to restructure the company. Amanda was being squeezed out. Not fired, not yet. But the writing was on the wall. They blamed her for the client losses. The crashes. The morale implosion. Chris Denton? He'd ghosted her completely, left for another startup in Seattle 2 weeks prior. No goodbye. No text. Amanda had no allies left. And now she was circling back to me, the husband she betrayed, fired, erased, hoping I'd help her climb out of the pit she dug. I should have felt something. Pity. Vindication. Even joy. But all I felt was clarity. She hadn't come back because she missed me. She came back because she was drowning and thought I was still soft enough to throw her a rope. She had no idea. The next day, I gave Lawrence Davenport the green light. Let's make our move, I said. The morning Davenport Systems made the offer, I was already at the office by 6 a.m. I hadn't slept much. Didn't need to. Lawrence walked in holding 2 coffees and a manila envelope. He dropped them both on the conference table and sat down across from me. It's official, he said. Offer sent. We're acquiring Rotech. I opened the envelope and read through the terms. The price? Low. Barely above salvage value. But that wasn't the point. Rotech wasn't being bought for its code, we were throwing most of that out anyway. We were buying the clients. And I was being asked to oversee the transition. You okay with that? Lawrence asked. I didn't hesitate. Under one condition, we do it right this time. Documentation. Infrastructure. Integrity. He nodded. It's yours. The papers were signed before noon. By 3 p.m., Rotech's board accepted. They had no choice, funding had dried up, clients were fleeing, and their system was running on duct tape and desperation. Amanda? She wasn't in the room when it happened. She'd resigned 4 days earlier. Her departure letter was cold, clinical, like a resignation from a company she barely knew. No apology. No mention of me. Just one final line. It's time for new leadership. That afternoon, I walked into my old office. Same glass walls. Same minimalist decor. Same framed abstract painting I never liked but Amanda insisted on. Only now, the name on the door wasn't hers. It was mine. I didn't touch anything right away. I just stood there for a minute, soaking in the silence. Not the kind that comes from loneliness, the kind that comes from winning. Micah, my PI, texted me later that day. She moved out of her loft. No forwarding address. Word is she's staying at her sister's place in Sonoma. Off the grid. Good. Let her be a ghost. That night, we toasted with whiskey in paper cups. My new team. My real team. The ones who believed in the work, not the flash. And I finally let myself exhale. I wasn't a victim anymore. I was the one holding the pen. And I had just written the ending Amanda never saw coming. 1 year later, I barely recognized my own life. Davenport Systems had doubled in size. Our new platform, Slate, wasn't just stable. It was beloved. Clients praised the speed, the simplicity, the reliability. The kind of reliability Rotech never delivered after I left. Funny thing is, I didn't miss Rotech. Not even a little. I miss building. Solving problems. Watching something go from whiteboard sketch to living, breathing software that made someone's life easier. We built it right this time. Documented everything. Designed for scale. We even started an internal academy training junior engineers on systems sustainability, not just shiny features. We didn't chase trends. We chased trust. And clients noticed. Northfield Properties expanded their contract. 3 other firms followed. Even a few of Rotech's former board members invested in us quietly with no strings attached. Just belief. I moved into a modest place outside the city. Sleek, quiet, efficient. Like my life now. No more loft with overpriced art and influencer lighting. No more pretending. I still kept the cabin though. On weekends, I'd head back there just to breathe in that silence that saved me once. In my new office, the real one with my name on the glass, there's a framed print above my desk. A quote I had custom made. Sometimes the best revenge is building something they can't tear down. I looked at it every morning before my first cup of coffee. People still asked about Amanda sometimes. Old colleagues. Journalists sniffing around for a "What Really Happened at Rotec" feature. I never answered. Never took the bait. She was history. My story moved on without her. But that didn't mean I forgot. You don't forget the person who tried to replace you. You just build something so strong, so undeniable, they realized too late. They could never. It was a Thursday when her name lit up my phone. Amanda Rowan. I hadn't seen it in over a year. She was still blocked everywhere that mattered, but somehow through a burner number or a new account she slipped through. The message was simple. I drove past the old house today. The tree in the front yard's still leaning. Thought of you. I stared at the screen for a long time, phone resting against my desk. The tree she was talking about? I'd planted that thing the same month we moved in. We'd fought about it for 2 weeks. She wanted a minimalist yard. I wanted something that grew roots. Felt poetic looking back. I didn't respond. 5 minutes later, another message came through. I know you probably hate me. I don't blame you. But I miss you, Nate. God, I miss us. Us. There was no us. There was her chasing status. Cheating. Scheming. And there was me building, trusting, losing. Then rebuilding. I could have deleted it right then. Could have ignored it. But a part of me was curious. So I clicked the number. Did a quick reverse lookup. California area code. Santa Rosa. Micah was still on retainer. I texted him. She's trying again. Can you look into what she's been up to? He replied 2 hours later with a PDF file and one sentence. She's circling the drain. The file detailed everything. Amanda had tried launching a coaching business for female founders in tech. It flopped. The investors she once dazzled? Gone. Her name was tied to too many system failures, too many angry clients. Chris Denton? Married someone else 6 months after he dumped Amanda. She tried texting him too. He never replied. She was living at her sister's place, bouncing between odd consulting gigs and overpriced retreats in wine country, trying to manifest a comeback that never came. She wanted back in. Not into my life. Into the proximity of success. And I was the last person left who'd once believed in her. I put my phone down. Walked outside onto the balcony. Breathed in the mountain air. I didn't hate her. But I wouldn't pity her either. She made her choices. And now she was finally feeling the weight of them. It was a Sunday morning. Crisp, quiet. I'd just gotten back from a trail run, coffee still brewing, when I heard the knock. Not urgent. Just persistent. I opened the door expecting a delivery. But there she was. Amanda. Standing on my porch like she hadn't torched our entire life. She looked different. Older, somehow. Not in a bad way, just worn. Her hair was pulled back, makeup minimal, oversized cardigan wrapped tight like armor. Hi, she said softly. I didn't move. Didn't invite her in. Just stood in the doorway waiting. I was in the area, she added. Figured it was time. Time for what? I asked. She looked past me into the house like she could still picture herself there. Like some part of her believed she had the right. To explain, she said. To say what I couldn't back then. I let the silence hang. I know I messed up, she continued. But I wasn't trying to hurt you. I was just trying to find myself again. I felt invisible. I raised an eyebrow. So you made yourself visible in hotel rooms with Chris Denton? Her face flushed, and for once she didn't deny it. I didn't know how to ask for what I needed, she said, voice cracking. And you were always so focused. So buried in the work. I felt like I was just orbiting your world, never in it. I leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. So you burned it all down? She blinked. Looked down. I thought I could rebuild it better. Without you. But it all fell apart. She met my eyes again. You were the only part of it that ever worked. That stopped me. Not because it was touching, but because it was true. I shook my head slowly. You know what hurts the most? I said. It's not that you cheated. Or that you fired me. It's that I would have done anything for you. All you ever had to do was ask. She nodded, tears finally brimming. Nate, she started. But I cut her off. I'm not angry anymore, Amanda. I'm not even bitter. I've built something stronger than we ever had. Something honest. And you don't get to rewrite the ending. I stepped back, slowly closing the door. I hope you find whatever you're looking for, I said. Then the door clicked shut. I stood there for a moment, staring at the wood grain, listening to her footsteps fade down the path. And just like that, it was done. Not with fireworks, not with screaming, just a door and a final word. After she left, I stood there for a while. Door closed, coffee cooling, heart calm. I didn't feel triumphant, didn't feel smug. I just felt done. It was the clean break I never got that day in the boardroom. The next morning, I walked into our office. Not Rotech's old glass temple, but the new one we built from the ground up. Hardwood floors, skylights, whiteboards covered in scribbles and ambition. Mina was already there, fixing a bug that hadn't even hit production yet. "Nate," she said, looking up. "The board approved our international rollout. We're expanding to Europe." I smiled. "Let's do it right." We were already training a new cohort of junior devs, most of them just out of college. Bright, curious, eager to learn. They reminded me of myself when I started. All raw ideas and idealism. We didn't just give them jobs. We gave them foundations. On the wall near my office, we framed a print. White text on black canvas. They tried to replace the engine, but they forgot who built the car. It became an inside joke around the team. And yeah, every now and then I still thought about Amanda. Micah told me she'd tried launching another consulting gig. Something about female-led resilience strategy. It didn't stick. Clients didn't trust her. Her name still carried the stink of Rotech's collapse. The most recent update? She was working freelance out of a co-working space in San Francisco. Room 3B, shared kitchenette. She had a podcast now, The Phoenix Principle, all about rising from setbacks. I never listened, because while she was rebranding failure, I was living rebirth. People don't always fall because they're weak. Sometimes they fall because they think they're untouchable. And sometimes, that fall is the lesson. Me, I didn't need revenge. I just needed a different road. Came out of nowhere. I was in the middle of a strategy meeting when Leo's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, blinked, then slid it across the table to me. One word on the screen. Rotech. I tapped the link. It was a press release. Short, blunt, final. Rotech Incorporated will cease operations effective immediately. The company has filed for dissolution following prolonged financial instability and client attrition. Remaining assets will be transferred to Davenport Systems per previous acquisition agreements. No spin. No Amanda quotes. No attempts at legacy-saving PR. Just the end. I leaned back in my chair, letting it sink in. The company Amanda had tried to rebuild without me, the one she thought would be her empire, was gone. Later that evening, I got a call from Micah. "She knows," he said. "She found out the same way you did. Press wire. I've got sources inside her co-working space. She packed up her desk in under 10 minutes. He paused. "And she left something behind." "What was it?" I asked. "Printout of your quote. The one from your office." She underlined one part. "They forgot who built the car." There was silence on the line. Then he added, "She was crying." I didn't respond, not because I didn't care, but because there was nothing left to say. You see, Amanda always believed the story ended when she walked away from me. But the truth? It ended when I walked away from her. The company, the marriage, the lies, the ego. I left it all behind. And in doing so, I became the thing she thought she could be without me. Essential. You'd think revenge would come with thunder. A courtroom showdown. A screaming match. Public takedown. But mine came quietly. I didn't need to ruin Amanda. I just needed to make sure she saw me thrive. 3 weeks after Rotech's shutdown, I was invited to speak at the Future Built conference in Austin. It was the biggest PropTech summit in the country, the same one Amanda once headlined. This year, the keynote belonged to me. The night before, I was reviewing slides in the green room when Mina knocked. "You've got a visitor," she said, eyes hesitant. I raised an eyebrow. "She's here." I didn't have to ask who. Amanda wasn't on the guest list, but she was in the crowd back row, sunglasses on, notebook in her lap like some anonymous startup hopeful. She'd come to see if I'd acknowledge her. Mention Rotek. Leave a crack open. I didn't. Instead, I stepped on stage, looked out over 800 faces and said, "What happens when the person who built the system is forced out? Simple. They built something better, this time with armor." The room leaned in. "I'm not here because I never fell. I'm here because I got up differently." Applause broke. Not polite, not scripted. Real. Amanda never stood, never clapped. But she didn't leave either. She stayed for the entire session. Watched me walk off stage. Saw the interviews, the photos, the conversations. She watched people shake my hand and ask for my advice. She watched the legacy she thought she could rewrite rebuild itself without her. Later that night, Mina handed me a note left at the reception desk. No envelope. Just one sentence. "You were never replaceable." I just didn't know how to admit it. I folded it, slid it into my pocket. Not to keep. To remind myself how far I'd come. Because revenge isn't always loud. Sometimes it's just being exactly who they swore you'd never become without them.